Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
Because over the last few years, there's been illnesses like COVID, swine flu, E. coli, all these different things. But pneumonia has always just not under the radar in the news and in different medical journals and other sorts of documentation. And even though that happens, still 2.5 million people pass away every single year from pneumonia, and that number has increased every single year for the last 10 years.
If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've heard me talking about the Inventors Bootcamp, right? Over the last 3 years, hundreds of inventors have joined us in the Inventors Bootcamp, and we have lots of exciting success stories from our students. But guess what? The bootcamp is not for everyone. If you like to tinker with invention ideas occasionally on weekends, hoping that someday someone will buy your idea, the Inventors Bootcamp is not for you. If you think it's your job to just come up with ideas and someone else can take care of the rest, prototypes, packaging, and contacting companies, the Inventors Bootcamp is not for you. But if inventing really matters to you, if you know deep in your heart that you've got an invention ripe for success, if you're willing to learn and do whatever it takes to be successful, I'm here to help you, and the Inventors Bootcamp is your ticket, your next logical step forward. So, what is it? When is it? And how do you sign up? The Inventors Bootcamp is 5 days of live interactive Zoom meetings, Monday, July 8th through Friday, July 12th, for 1 hour each night. Teaches you precisely how to create a clear, concise marketing message, which is exactly what companies want to hear. When you join us, you'll meet other inventors, plus you get a licensing masterclass, and lots more. The next Inventors Bootcamp starts very soon, Monday, July 8th. Enrollment is open now. Just go to www.alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. Many podcast listeners, just like you, have joined the Inventors Bootcamp. Here are just a few of our success stories. Duncan Ashworth has 2 companies interested in licensing his COVID-killing floor sanitizing invention. Daryl Carter secured a business partner and licensing arrangement. His asthma relief product debuts this fall. And Julietta Hughes tested her portrait artist invention. Now she's got a clear strategy for reaching out to companies to license it. Ready to add your success story to our list? The bootcamp is your ticket. Register now at www.alanbeckley.com/bootcamp to save your seat at the July bootcamp. Again, just register at www.alanbeckley.com/bootcamp, and we'll see you in the July bootcamp. Welcome to episode number 420. Today, I interview Prithvi Krishnan. Prithvi Krishnan is a dedicated, rising high school senior at Westwood High School in Austin, Texas, with a strong academic record. At 16 years old, he's the youngest inventor I've had on the podcast so far. He has a diverse set of leadership experiences, such as being an Eagle Scout and president of multiple school clubs. Prithvi is also the co-founder and COO of Endeavor AI, a nonprofit teaching coding and AI to kids globally, and has received numerous awards in STEM and leadership roles. He also is a co-founder of the nonprofit for teaching coding to underserved kids in Austin called Code Club Austin, and is back-end programmer along with a lead marketer for his new website development agency, Dev One, where he is currently working on the website for it and getting in contact with businesses for personalized websites. After his grandfather tragically died of pneumonia, he began researching possible ways to improve detection rates of pneumonia. His invention consists of an improved AI methodology for detecting pneumonia from chest x-rays that has an accuracy rate of up to 99% compared to current conventional methods yielding only 70 to 83% accuracy. You'll want to listen to this entire interview where Prithvi shares how he recognized there's a huge focus medically on COVID, while pneumonia is often overlooked in medical research, even though over 2.5 million people in the U.S. die from pneumonia every year. Also, how deep learning algorithms can learn from databases of hundreds of patient x-rays to more accurately predict pneumonia than is typical of physicians alone. And finally, why he believes that when his ensemble methodology is further developed commercially and made available globally, potentially millions of lives could be saved. Now, let's get right to our interview with Prithvi Krishnan. Prithvi Krishnan, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet. Prithvi, you're a very busy 16-year-old high school student in Austin, Texas. You're an instructor at Mathnasium, a Taekwondo karate instructor, an Eagle Scout, and a camp counselor, to name a few. Many people struggle to manage and juggle busy schedules. How do you also find time for schoolwork and, as we'll discuss in a couple of moments, your invention?
Thank you for asking that. So my best way of juggling a busy schedule is just by making a plan on a Google Calendar or just writing it down. Because since I do have a lot of different responsibilities, I feel that writing it down and seeing every morning, okay, what do I have to do today? Because everyone has 24 hours in a day. There are people who do more than I do. And if they're able to do it with their busy schedules, then as a 16-year-old, I can definitely do that. And that's definitely an inspiration for a lot of other people who want to become inventors and want to grow into that role, but they feel that they have too many things on their plate. You can definitely grow into any role as an inventor or just any different avenue. It's just making a plan and sticking to it diligently and having the discipline to actually follow that plan and not make adjustments very just abrasively.
That makes so much sense, Prithvi. What I found is exactly what you said. Having discipline about it actually serves you. It actually frees you to have a plan because what's coming and what's next, etc. Sometimes people feel like, oh, it's so constraining to lay out a schedule and a plan. But the truth is, it's actually freeing you because it allows you to plan your time and also other time when you may be doing fun and other things. So putting a schedule together actually is stress relieving, in my opinion.
That is definitely 100% true.
Prithvi, you've developed a methodology for detecting pneumonia using image processing and object detection that can detect pneumonia with a 96% accuracy rate from chest x-ray images. That's amazing. But before we dive into more details about your invention, can you share with our listeners what was your motivation to take on this task? Can you point to an aha moment that made you want to pursue this research in pneumonia detection?
Yes. So my main instance of wanting to do this project, there were two main avenues where I was thinking. At first, I was in this program called Inspired AI, and they were talking about different projects that we could do as a group because it's just a group program where you do a project per week. And one of the ideas was pneumonia detection because not many people had done it before. We did not go through that project. So then that's stuck in my mind. And then later in the year, in November of 2023, my grandfather sadly was diagnosed with pneumonia. And this was a really just horrible time for my family because we had to rough back and forth from hospital to home. We had to really just dive 100% deep into the illness and make sure that my grandfather could hopefully come out of it alive. And I feel that it's not talked about enough illness. because over the last few years, there's been illnesses like COVID, swine flu, E. coli, all these different things. But pneumonia has always just not under the radar in the news and in different medical journals and other sorts of documentation. And even though that happens, still 2.5 million people pass away every single year from pneumonia, and that number has increased every single year for the last 10 years. And I feel that my project, after my grandfather sadly passed away in December of 2023, when my mom was asking me, okay, how could we have actually identified this earlier? How could we have known that my grandfather had pneumonia? Because he started symptoms 3 weeks before they actually diagnosed it. And that I felt was the biggest killer to it. And so I felt that when I was thinking of wanting to do a project, I felt that was the best avenue to go into. And that was my main goal, was to see how can an image of your lungs how can an AI model be able to identify that you have pneumonia or not in a very short amount of time.
That's fantastic. I want to just highlight a couple key points you made. And first, unfortunately, I'm so sad for the passing of your grandfather. With hopefully the benefit, in a manner of speaking, is that has inspired you to help save other families from the grief that you and your family have experienced by finding a way to detect pneumonia earlier with higher degree of accuracy. And you made the point that your grandfather had symptoms 3 weeks before the diagnosis. What if those symptoms could have been recognized positively 3 weeks earlier? It might have been a key difference. And as you mentioned, 2.5 million people in the U.S. die every year from pneumonia. And I think some people aren't fully aware, but during the height of COVID, lots and lots of people in nursing homes and things whose cause of death was listed as COVID, their real proximal cause of death in many cases was not COVID. It was actually pneumonia. But since they had COVID, I guess they were motivated to list it as COVID, so that's just another side note.
Yes, that is definitely 100% everything you said there was true. I appreciate your grace for my grandfather. And I do believe that this project has made a great impact it's made a great impact for me, but it's also, I hope that in the future, I'll discuss later, that it can help more families and get doctors a quicker result of if this patient has pneumonia or not, compared to manually doing it, which is one of the downsides of non-AI models when identifying pneumonia.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So could you briefly describe how pneumonia is most commonly detected using conventional methods with X-rays? Also, approximately what is the accuracy rate of those conventional methods of detection currently?
Definitely. So the conventional method that I researched of how pneumonia is detected now through X-rays is that doctors will have a scan of your lung and they will see, okay, so their main things they're trying to see are for opacity. So any blotches of darkness within your lungs, because if you see a normal chest X-ray image, it won't have any darkness. It won't have any little squares of black spots, none of those things. Even though it's a black and white image, it's pretty easy to tell there. So it's really hard for doctors to be able to do that quickly because they have to look at each image, take multiple minutes to see, okay, are there any signs of it? And then also they have access to the patient history and they have access to all the different data of the patient. And so factoring that in, they have to be able to manually decide, okay, so this person has these characteristics in their lung image, and this person has had these symptoms, maybe pneumonia or maybe not pneumonia, over the last couple of weeks. And so now the doctor has to decide, okay, does this person actually have pneumonia? And this definitely has a way lower accuracy rate than my AI model that I tested, where from what I researched and data that was collected over the last couple of years, there's about on the lowest end, depending on experience and depending on human error, which is one of the biggest parts of the manual identification, is around 70 to like 80, 82, 83% around that range. And when it comes to someone's life in your hand, that seems like most of the time it will be fine. But my main goal is to reduce the amount of false positives and increase the amount of true positives and false negatives, because even though, yes, I don't want people to have pneumonia, I would rather have something identified that someone correctly has pneumonia or correctly doesn't have pneumonia versus falsely stating those points. And it was a very strong approach from my side.
Thanks for sharing that. And as you were describing that, and the accuracy being as low as 70 to 83%, combined with something that would seem to be good, and I guess generally is, that the doctor would refer to their entire case history of what's going on with the patient, but at the same time, it might cause them to discount something as pneumonia. I would think, for example, somebody who's a heavy smoker, 2 packs of cigarettes a day, their lungs are not going to look the same as somebody like me who's never smoked. And so the doctor, knowing that person is a heavy smoker, might not be surprised to see a couple little black spots or something within their lungs, and then maybe false identify that was being connected with smoking when in fact it's pneumonia. Did you see or think anything like that?
Yes, that is actually that was actually a big part, one of the factors when I was looking into like how doctors are doing it now. Because let's say someone is a smoker and they've had history of it, their lungs would look different than yours from the standpoint that you do not smoke. And so those people, even though the doctors see that, one that cannot 100% tie into stating that from their standpoint, they can't, it would be wrong for them to just associate it directly from, okay, if they're a smoker and they have these, then it has to be pneumonia, but because of their accuracy rate, but also the other standpoint of it and the other side of it, which is what you were saying, is that when they false identify that, okay, it was just smoking and they're having these symptoms versus actually having pneumonia, that's where I wanted to reduce the amount of confusion and increase the precision, increase the accuracy rate because of those issues from, okay, does this person actually have pneumonia, or are they just having symptoms of their prolonging smoking habit? So that was something that was really important for me to take into account, and I'm really appreciative that you were able to identify that.
Oh, thank you. So let's dive into the details a little bit with what you've been doing. Your research shows that you've tapped the power of deep learning algorithms, specifically something called convolutional neural networks, or CNN for short. Can you describe at a high level what CNN is and what led you to pursue this particular approach to produce significantly higher accuracy rates of pneumonia detection?
Yes. So CNNs, or convolutional neural networks, are a type of deep learning algorithm that are specifically designed for processing structured grid data. They're particularly effective for image recognition tasks, which makes them well suited for medical image analysis like pneumonia detection in chest X-ray images. And so there are a few key features of convolutional neural networks that you have to understand. And so the first one is a convolutional layer. And so each of my models are equipped with convolutional layers. And so these scan the input image to detect features and patterns. So, and when there is the data set, you have the different data sets with the images of, okay. And so these convolutional layers scan the input image and see, okay, does it have these symptoms of pneumonia? Okay, so darkened spots in certain areas representing inflammation. Okay, does it have just one darkened dot, or does it have in one part of the lung and both parts of the lung? And so it looks at those key features and patterns to identify that. So that's why it's one of the most important parts of the convolutional neural network. The second part is the pooling layers. And so the pooling layers reduce the actual spatial dimension of the data and retain most of the important info. And so it will pretty much reduce the size of the image. So then it can highlight specifically those areas where there could be pneumonia, there might be pneumonia, or there isn't pneumonia. And so it will break each part of the image down and shrink them so then they can specifically see, okay, where is it here? And that is one of the things that one of the novel approaches that I took was because I'm not saying that I was the first ever person to think of pneumonia detection. Have been similar things in the past, but they have been very smaller versions of it. They haven't had high enough accuracy. They had different approaches, and none of them had, using one of the Python libraries, a way to point the specific area in the image where the actual pneumonia is. And so using these pooling layers and these convolutional layers, I'm able to specifically see, okay, like pointing in the image, there will be an arrow. So this specific area is pneumonia, right? To a 99% accuracy, right?
I just want to say that that's really fantastic. And just from more of a high level point from our audience, but a couple of keys that I took out of what you said is that there's effectively two layers. There's a convolutional layer that is particularly good at scanning images for the CNN in general is good for image recognition and particularly good for this particular purpose as an algorithm. But the convolutional layer is great for finding dots, spots, etc. And then the pooling layer reduces the size of the images, and the combination of both of those is particularly effective. Would you say that's accurate?
That is definitely accurate. The convolutional layer and the pooling layers are the two of the three parts. The final part, it's just connecting those two. Not mentioned as much. Most image architecture like mine don't really discuss the fully connected layer, the final layer of the CNN, which is just connecting the convolutional and the pooling layer to create that part of the CNN. Choosing to pursue this approach was for several reasons of pinpointing the exact spots where pneumonia is, increasing the actual accuracy of the pneumonia identification, because we're pinpointing it down to a minute spot in the actual image. And then also there has been a proven track record in other diseases where identifying different diseases or just identifying different things using images have been shown to have great success using CNN.
You mentioned that most researchers in this field choose to use a singular method, whereas you've used what you call an ensemble approach that yields accuracies, I believe, of up to 99%. Can you share with us what is the key difference between singular methods and an ensemble method like you've chosen? Also, what issues did you see with the singular methods that led you to consider the ensemble method? Can you share that with us?
Definitely. So the singular method is using one machine learning model. So what I mean by that is that the singular method will be taking that image, the chest X-ray image, and putting it through one model versus an ensemble method, which is putting it through three or more models, two or more models. And so my invention used three models because that is the most I could find. That is more than anyone else has done in the space. And so the singular method, all predictions are based on one model's output. So that is why it's way harder to get the accuracy and precision you want, because you're looking at one method. Say, for example, you were writing a essay for school and you let one person review it versus an ensemble method where you let three people review it. Where would you see that in the singular method that you receive better results because you only have one person input, or three people input where you're actually able to see three different perspectives, which means that the ensemble shows a grander scheme? That is the same thing for this project. right? The ensemble method will show increases in accuracy, precision, overall performance because it is able to run through the image is going through 3 different models and it's going through 3 different CNNs. And so that is the main reason why I used an ensemble model, an ensemble method over a singular method. And also, the issues with the singular method, like I stated before, there's something called overfitting. So what I mean by that is that the single model can sometimes fit too closely to the training data and perform poorly on new data. And that's what I was saying before. If you are having one perspective, it will just to that one piece of data and be like, okay, this image works to this accuracy in this data. But let's say I take another piece of the data and put the image through that model for it. There will be a way bigger difference in accuracy. It could decrease, it could increase, but it will fluctuate, which is the problem. Compared to an ensemble model where it will reduce overfitting by seeing, okay, there's this one image. It's going through 3 different models, and it will have a more specified approach to looking at the data and will actually be able to reduce the problem of overfitting.
Yeah, I really appreciate you explaining that. Makes perfect sense the way you described it. And I was thinking of the example you used for one, but the idea that anytime you have a singular approach to anything, there's a natural set of biases within that approach. But if you have 2 or 3, the biases within each approach might tend to filter out against each other or cancel each other out or be addressed that way. And quick question I have. So did you see like your accuracy went from what to what when you looked at the singular approach as opposed to your ensemble approach?
When I was going through a singular approach, one of the models that I used, the name of it was BGG16. The name, there's no specific reason why that's the name. Someone in the past had created it, and I used that model. And when I used that one model, I only thought accuracy of about 83% in some, so different run-throughs, versus to 90%. And that's where it was fluctuating at, versus in the ensemble model, when I was having it, it would always stay in that range of about 96 to 99%. And even though, yes, that does fluctuate a tiny bit, it is way more precise. And also, you are fluctuating at a higher degree of accuracy, where 97, 98% compared to 99% doesn't have that big of a difference versus 83 to 90%, where in the singular method, you're seeing a lot more issues with different pieces of data on different images.
And I'm just still amazed at 96 to 99%. I wanted to mention that as an inventor in a combined technical and medical sector, what has been, would you say, your greatest challenge so far in pursuing this project?
My greatest challenge so far in pursuing the project was I have 2 main challenges, which are both at the same level of difficulty. So the first one was actually finding the data, because in other projects that I have seen, it is really hard to get not really real data, it's just that relevant data to now. Because if I'm going to bring this forward to a company or to a hospital, I'm trying to get a high enough accuracy on a reliable piece of data. So that is why when I saw very recent pieces of literature who did somewhat similar projects to mine, who did research papers on these things in 2023, I looked at their data and I was thinking, okay, so this thing has 2,000 pieces of data versus this one has 1,000 pieces of data and was from 2020 versus 2,000 in 2023. So that was my main metric, to see the latest piece of data and the most, because you want the most data points to get the highest amount of accuracy, obviously. So that was my main way to come back. But it took a while, because you're not trying to start a project and then midway through get stuck on a low amount of accuracy because your data that you chose a week before stopped you. So that was one of the big fears that I had. Luckily, I was able to find a good piece of data and get it to a high enough accuracy at a reliable point, but not many people have that luxury. So that was one of the biggest challenges.
I can imagine. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I guess as we roll towards a close, I'd say, what's next for you with your invention? Do you see a path for commercialization of this invented methodology? And do you see research universities and companies or others willing to help you take the next step? Could you share with us just a couple quick mentions? What's next for you?
Definitely. So one of the main goals that I have is the University UT Austin has a UT Health Research Lab, and they do a lot of these different things with research similar to what I am doing. And one of my biggest ideas was going to them in a student amount of time and speaking with them about, okay, so I had this piece of research. How can I implement this into the university with people who are more experienced than me, who have probably thought of this before, and who have the resources to actually grow the project in an astronomical way? Very similar to one of my other projects that I have currently been finishing up, where I'm identifying insurance premiums at a 96% accuracy rate. And that also looking into using university professors and working with them to get better data, get a more reliable insurance data. So both projects, I am very focused on making sure that I can grow them, because I'm not trying to stop now. I'm not trying to go to college and then be like, okay, that's it. I'll just forget about this project. No, there are hospitals who want to increase their resources. There are countries like India where these resources aren't available to them, and being able to give this to them, where in India, pneumonia is one of the biggest killers, air quality and different issues. I'm trying to make sure that, okay, these countries which don't have these resources can get these resources, because the US isn't the only country in the world, but the US isn't the only one that should have these resources. Every country should have the ability to get these resources and be able to grow with them. And so those are my main goals.
That's fantastic. And I think that's such a great idea, is to look at humanity writ large and all these other countries of the world that would certainly benefit. In many cases, India and other countries where pneumonia could be much more debilitating and problematic for a variety of reasons than it is in the United States. So this is just a starting point, I would say. And my last question for you, though, as we wrap this up, is how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions?
Definitely. So if you have any other questions, please reach out to my email, which is prithvisk2023@gmail.com. My LinkedIn is Prithvi Krishnan. The spelling will be in the title. And also my Instagram is prithvi.krishnan17. You can contact me anyway. I'm happy to answer all of your questions and help each one of you develop all humanities into a more advanced society, giving more access to people for healthcare and different issues.
Perfect. Let me just repeat back what I believe I heard for your email. It would be prithvisk2023@gmail.com. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And spelling your name is Prithvi, then sk2023 for our listeners.
Yes.
As well as the others you gave. So that's fantastic. I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today and sharing this phenomenal research you've done that can really make the difference in the lives of millions of people. And wow, I'm just so impressed with you, and you've got such a bright future ahead of you, and it's going to be amazing to see what you do next. And I'd like to reserve the opportunity, maybe another 6 months or a year, to catch up with you and see what you've got going on at that time.
I will definitely accept your offer and extend months to a year to come back and state what I've been working on. And I also will be listening to the podcast to see what other people are coming up, because I want to see how other people are changing the course of humanity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Once again, thanks for being on the podcast, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
You bet. As an inventor, do you ever feel lonely? Because no one seems to understand what you are doing or why. What if there was a community of other inventors, just like you, that you could meet, share with, and learn from every month? What if every month you had a front row seat to learn how to license, research companies, and sharpen your marketing message from successful inventors like Marcy McKenna, Lisa Lloyd, Aaron Krause, and many others? Guess what? The Inventors Helping Inventors membership group, or IHIMG, gives you all of that and more for only $35 a month. Less than a few lattes at Starbucks. Just go to alanbeckley.com/IHI35 for all the details and to join us now. From the moment you join, you'll get instant access to over 40 recorded videos in the IHIMG Video Vault, where you'll learn how Jim DeBetta ventures products successfully in a challenging retail market, about Lisa Lloyd's secret research resources to determine which products to pursue and which to leave behind, how Serena Oliver was able to craft 3 successful Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, how Bop It inventor Dan Klitzner launched over 50 successful products in the uber-challenging toy business, and more. By the way, all of those videos are just from 2022. There's lots more from 2021 and 2023 in the Video Vault for members. To join us now in the Inventors Helping Inventors membership group, just go to alanbeckley.com/IHI35. I look forward to meeting you and helping you to accelerate your journey and gain traction as an inventor. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.